are now in the first day of the year 2020, folks. So hey, it's time to party hard and be like Chris Jericho and get a little bit of the bubbly. Actually, I don't do that, but for those that do, hey, more power to you. However, this will not be just the new episode of the new year. This will actually be a special episode dedicated to a fellow YouTuber as well as followers of the game that I'm about to review. So sit back, relax, grab some snacks, because this is the Musashi X Chronicles 2020. Oh yeah! For this special episode of the Chronicles, I'm dedicating this review video to a good friend of mine and fellow YouTuber, G to the Next Level, as well as others that also have a following for the game that I'm about to review. Popful Mail on the Sega CD. And this game actually does have a weird history to it. Supposedly, this game is supposed to be part of the Sonic the Hedgehog series, but the plans for doing so fell through the cracks. But I'll get to its history as the review rolls on.
Back in 2017, in my review of Sonic CD, I gave out a short overview of the Sega CD itself, talking about its specifications as well as the games for that add-on, and Popful Mail was one of the games I've mentioned. I've heard of this game some decades past in magazines like EGM, and I've only seen some short clips of the game during a discussion in an episode of the G4 show X-Play, then called Extended Play at the time. As for my history of playing the game, I was still in my emulation binge during the early 2010s, and upon playing this, immediately I would find its gameplay similar to that of Castlevania's Symphony of the Night long before the game was even made, from its 2D gameplay to RPG elements like collecting money to buy stuff. I enjoyed it for a short while, but I didn't get that far as I was caught up with playing other games that I stopped playing the game and probably forgot about continuing on. I was not reminded of the game again until this past year at the Houston Arcade Expo, when G to the Next Level, a fellow YouTuber and a good friend of mine, by the way, subscribe to his channel, he provides such great content, told me that one of the dealers was selling a legitimate copy of Popful Mail for only $100. That right there is a steal, as most dealers that would sell a copy of Popful Mail, their minimum would usually be around $300, and it was one of the few times that I would cave in to peer pressure. Once G found out about me purchasing the game, he hoped for me to make a review video of it for this channel. Since he's a good friend of mine, and there are others that have a cult following for this game, I'm thinking that I can make this one my first review of 2020, so I greenlit the idea. But what of the development of the game itself? Popful Mail was developed in 1991 by Falcom, best known for their ongoing RPG series, Ys, which I played the first two games via MSX emulation. I enjoyed them for a while and then stopped upon switching to playing different RPGs during that time, though the best way I can describe Ys 1 and 2 is that this is how Highlight should have been. Popful Mail's initial release in 1991 was for Japan's NEC PC 8800 series of home computers, and it wouldn't be seeing a worldwide release until 1995 for the Sega CD, published and localized by Working Designs, the publishers who helped brought both Lunar Silver Star and Lunar Eternal Blue to the West. However, prior to localization, Sega would pitch an idea to Falcom to bring the game to the US by replacing its characters with those from the Sonic series, and replacing the protagonist to be a female hedgehog with a backstory of her being Sonic's long-lost sister, replacing the name of the game to be called Sister Sonic. Reskinning a pre-existing game? That's something not new in the 90s. As far as Sister Sonic is concerned, once fans found out that the game is going to be a reskinned Popful Mail, Sega would have angry hate mail pouring into their doorstep because A, the internet wasn't a thing back then, and B, gamers hoped for Sega to just release Popful Mail the way it is. Which is why extra enhancements was then handled by both Working Designs and former Sega subsidiary Sims. Also, Sister Sonic? Sonic doesn't get one until the 1999 show Sonic Underground, and honestly, I really don't like that show very much. So let's take a look at what Popful Mail is all about. Since this is an action RPG, you're better off investing on a CD backup cartridge before playing, as the internal RAM on the Sega CD is really low. The story begins with a backstory of 3 fallen gods of darkness invading the land of mortals in order to claim the world for themselves following their exile from the heavens. A great war ensued between the gods and a group of mortals vowing to save the land from their rule. After sealing the gods away, only 3 survivors, an elf, a human, and a dwarf, lived on to tell the tale. Centuries later, the story revolves around an elven bounty hunter named Mail, who is currently after the bounty of a criminal golem maker named Nutscracker. However, her attempts of capturing him have been mostly a bust time and again, leaving her very discouraged until one day, when she learns of a new bounty being posted in the town square. Mail's mindset would soon be uplifted when she learns that 2 million gold will be rewarded to the person who either captures or successfully eliminates a wizard-turned-corrupted criminal named Muttonhead and sets off on her quest to make her goal a reality, unaware that the journey might be more than she bargained for, thus starting the game. The gameplay is a non-linear 2D side-scroller, much like Sega's Monster World games, Castlevania II Simon's Quest, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night years after, as you're in control of Mail, armed with a sword and shield as she battles her way through enemies and collecting some gold along the way. She will eventually come across 2 other characters in her quest, with the first one being Tat, an amateur wizard who made it his journey to find his former master, revealed to be Muttonhead, to find out why he would turn to the dark side, and Gaw, a demon from a dragon tribe that was enslaved by villains and joins Mail to save his clan. Each character has their own attributes. Mail is the fastest and is proficient with melee and throwable weapons. Tat has decent speed and is very skilled with magic, and Gaw is the slowest but has high damage output. Once you recruit these characters, just by simply pausing the game, you can switch between them at any time, and each character has their own weapons and armor that you can buy and equip, either to make them stronger or use a specific weapon in whatever situation you come across. This game has some elements taken from any typical RPG, but sadly there's no experience system. You'll spend most of the game defeating enemies for gold, which you spend for better equipment for your team as the game can get progressively harder. Each character will always have 100 HP, and each character's attributes are determined by your selected armor and the damage you absorb from enemies when equipping said armor. Since you have more than one character to play, you can change it to a different character who is fresh in case one of them is about to be defeated, but again, that option is locked if you're fighting a boss. Similarly, all enemies also have 100 HP, but their attributes differ depending on the enemy type. The game's different locales can range from forested areas to underground mines, navigating through slippery mountains, or traversing through volcanic areas, and you can return to those areas at any time you desire, though it's often a good idea that you do so, if you want to get some good weapons for your team, as not every area is hazardous, as certain parts in the action stages will have some NPCs that you can communicate, whether they're giving you extra tasks, or some can be merchants that you can buy or sell stuff. The level design is well constructed to where you don't spend the whole game just focusing on one character alone, as every so often, you'll find yourself switching to a different character that can traverse better than the other, while areas like icy terrain would have you either wing it or require some forethought before advancing. While normal enemies can go down easily, the bosses are a different story. It's better to save and select your character before entering, as many of the game's bosses require you to strike a specific body part, similarly to the shooter series Thunder Force. The music in the game is very lighthearted and full of energy, if a bit too much despite the overall theme. Don't get me wrong, the soundtrack is well composed, but the theme in the game is mostly fantasy, and most of the songs in the game sound more like they belong in the Wild West, like Sunset Riders. Minor nitpick on my part, but I just had to make a mention of it. The voice acting for the time is good in my opinion, Most players nowadays will say that today's voice actors can sound better, but for me, this one still holds up, and plus this is a 90s game, and some people just don't give it some slack. Heck, I find the voice acting for Snatcher on the Sega CD to be good as well, and the acting on many games during the mid-90s are fine in their own way. Another case of current generation complacency. The atmosphere of the game is a combination of action, fantasy adventure, sword and sorcery, and some slapstick comedy, very reminiscent of some anime like Slayers. So much so that the actions and mannerisms of Mail is similar to that of Lena Inverse. When it comes to the Sega CD, usually cutscenes, live action or animated, would usually come off as choppy and of low quality, but surprisingly, not in Popful Mail. The quality of the cutscenes are high for a Sega CD title, and the animation and transitions flow very well like you're watching a show on a real TV set. Games on the Sega Saturn and PS1 would perform it better, but for this game on the Sega CD, it was visually impressive for its time. Overall, while the game is no different from any other 2D side-scroller RPGs at the time, it's still a solid game to play. It is repetitive, I'll admit, what with constantly grinding for money and no experience system, but as you progress through your journey further, the fun factor of the game will build up eventually. The visuals are very colorful and well designed, and the story, while not meant to be taken seriously, you'll get a few laughs from it. Popful Mail will get at least an 8.5. Critics back in the 90s find the game mediocre, but for me, personally, while not the greatest of RPGs, I still had a good time with it.
So if you're planning on hunting this game down, it's either you're fortunate enough like I am and get this for $100, or you could go the cheaper route by going through art sites and get a repro copy of this for half the price, maybe cheaper than that, because this game as of late has been going up on value, and if you're trying to get an actual copy, well, don't expect for the price to go down anytime soon. Well, that wraps up my first review of the new year. I hope your viewers liked this video, and shout out to my good friend, G to the Next Level. So G, if you're watching this, well, as promised, I did make a review video of Popful Mail for you, as well as others that have a following for the game. I hope you like this review video. I hope you like hearing the opinions I have of the game. And I wish both you and your wife a Happy New Year, and I look forward to seeing you both at PAX South this month. You know, I've been thinking. Just recently I have over 100 subscribers that I haven't done anything special yet for this channel. So I'm thinking that a few days after I upload this video, I will upload a short video in which you, the viewers, will help decide as to what game that I will review next. That's right, I'm going to give you viewers a chance to vote for the next video. So yeah, stay tuned for that video, folks, as I will be showcasing 4 choices for you viewers to vote on. Until then, this has been Musashi X, and I bid you all farewell. Take care, stay tuned, and Happy New Year, everybody!